So let's talk about poverty a little bit so we understand poverty now from the perspective of holism. And without understanding all the specifics of what I'm going to talk about, just delving into the feeling and the general understanding that no one part of poverty exists all on its own, nor can nor should be looked at or analyzed independently, because you're not going to get close to the entirety of the conversation. And so I'm going to spend probably about 15 minutes. I'm just going to go through these each, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them and a little bit about their connectivity. So one of the main root issues is, I have HIV/AIDS here, but let's just take like some of the major pandemics that are existing, that are affecting huge amounts of people. HIV, known as the silent killer, and malaria, and then obviously cholera and typhoid and a couple other biggies, tuberculosis. We've got some major diseases that are affecting people who live in extreme poverty, and the diseases and the presence of those diseases, and then the environmental conditions which make those diseases more lethal, and also the limited access to available remedies and solutions to these diseases, becomes a major root issue that has implications and affects every other root issue. Because HIV/AIDS, it's not just about a person getting sick, but it's about that person getting sick also being the breadwinner. And now the children don't have the food that they needed. And now the mother resorts to prostitution to be able to make more money for the children. And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. So we see how any individual issue becomes a part of the roots that are going to affect all the others. Okay, sanitation-related hazards. I've talked a lot about this one today. Essentially, it typically refers to the intimate connection that so many people have to their own feces, right? They're either stepping on it, flies are landing on it and landing their food, it's getting to their drinking water and they're consuming it, children are getting it on them and bringing it back into their homes, etc., etc. And so we have this intimate connection between people and their own feces, unfortunately, which results in the spread of a lot of sanitation-related diseases, which results in morbidity, which is suffering, and mortality, which is death, to far too many people. And I mentioned the statistic that 6,000 people die per day. 6,000 children, 6,000 people die per day from diarrhea. Okay. We have the water-related issues. Okay, we have women who spend a tremendous amount of their daily energy in the simple acquisition of water. So we've got a time issue there. We also have all the opportunity costs that a woman has to deal with because she has 6 hours a day allocated to collecting water. So education, income-generating activities, gardening, even participating in REMA's Health Action Community Group might be impossible because a woman's highest priority is to make sure she has water available for her family. So a lot of limitations due to the water challenges. Not only is the water scarce and difficult to access, but the quality is obviously a major issue. So you have a lot of people that are getting a lot of digestion and other related diseases from drinking poor water quality. And in some areas, we still have a limited understanding about microorganisms, and so there hasn't been a fully developed understanding of the correlation between consumption of putrid water and the related illnesses that come from it. And so those are some of the water-related issues. Gender inequality we see to be very, it's prevalent throughout the developing world. I mean, it's prevalent across the planet for sure, but we see that it becomes more intense and more visible in developing parts of the world, where we see that at one level we have women who aren't given political opportunities, they're not given equal education opportunities, they're not given equal respect, they're not able to, even from an economic perspective, they're not able to engage in local economies in the same way that men are. That's at the mild side of the conversation. Okay? we get a little bit deeper in that conversation, and we see that female genital mutilation becomes prevalent. I don't know this just off the top of my head, but there's millions and millions of girls who've been affected by this. A lot of them are dead today because they were killed in the process. You see this type of mutilation that can happen in Afghanistan and other areas for different reasons. And I'm sorry to say, but this isn't even the deepest into the swimming pool. We've got infanticide and murder and a lot of other things that happen to young girls in order to be able, from a gender inequality perspective. So, and we see the way that gender inequality, like all the other root issues, permeates throughout all the different dynamics of poverty and exacerbates so many of the different issues. Okay, we have vulnerable children. Okay, due to some of the pandemics and a number of other issues, we have many children all across the developing world that that do not have any guardians, okay? And that they're left typically they're left as orphans, or they're left with some level of guardianship, but that those guardians don't have the resource to take care of them appropriately, so they don't have the clothes or the food or the shelter that we would expect to be, that any child should deserve to be able to have. You've got a lot of suffering and death that comes from it. And you also just have an overarching problem of a generation rising in a lot of areas that haven't had mentorship. They haven't had any level of guidance or support or counsel. And that makes it, children are designed to be able to work with some level of guidance to teach them how to come into this world. And so we see some related issues there. There's a picture that I actually took in Kenya of 3 orphans, that this blanket is one of the only possessions that they have. Malnutrition being an issue that's, South America, Southeast Asia, Africa, you name it. We're talking about 2 major issues here. A, people that don't have the enough food to eat. And then B, people that don't have the right types of food to eat. So they don't have the proper nourishment in their bodies. And not only is this going to make life just not very fun, because who here likes to be hungry? It actually sucks. But furthermore, the ability to learn is decreased as your brain doesn't have the nutrients that are needed to be able to process effectively. And so there's an actual cognitive retardation that happens when children don't have the nutrients that are needed. So are all people started equal? Absolutely. But is a 20-year-old in America going to most likely be more intelligent than a 20-year-old that grew up in a malnourished condition? Yes. Because their brain has actually been able to develop more effectively because they have the available nutrients to do so. Education challenges. So we're talking about illiteracy here. We're talking about the lack of available educational institutions. We're talking about the corruption in the education systems, the abuse, both verbal and physical, the rate that is very common in so many parts of the developing world because of the lack of accountability, best practices, school management, stuff like that. Electricity, right? We've figured out this thing called electricity. It's really useful. It does lots of stuff for us. We push a button, our clothes are washed. We push it, we open a door, our food stays cold. We push another button, our food heats up. So electricity does a lot of the work for us that there's many people in the rest of the world that they don't have that same luxury. So if you think about all the things that you're able to accomplish, because the washing machine is washing your clothes for you, and the oven is cooking your clothes for you, so you're not scrubbing clothes or...
The washing machine is washing your clothes for you. The oven is cooking our food. You said the oven is
Yes.
cooking our clothes.
Well, whatever. The oven is cooking our clothes for us. The oven is cooking our food for us.
It's been a long weekend.
It's been a long weekend, yeah. Exactly. So rather than us taking our stuff down to the river and doing that thing, and then us gathering firewood, making a fire, tending that fire, cooking our food over that fire. We're able to do lots of other types of things. And when we're able to help people that are living in extreme poverty conditions have a more reliable source of electricity, then that's going to increase their capacity to be able to benefit from a lot of the modern technologies that are very, 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 very useful, with artificial light probably being the single most useful utilization of electricity. Okay, we've got money challenges. Now, I was trying to find the right picture to represent money challenges, and I came across this random picture of this old Indian guy wrestling a bear. Wow. And I was like, that's so random. And it was so random that I clicked on it to like see the website that it came from. And what it said was that this old man, for a couple of rupees, which is Indian currency from like travelers, will wrestle this bear. And I was like, there is not a better picture to symbolize money challenges than this right here. And this is symbolizing literally what's happening right here is a person that doesn't have access to the money that they need is able as having to go out and do extreme things to get that money. And that might be wrestling a bear, it might be some type of violence or other type of unhealthy societal behavior. It could very well and often be prostitution. It could often be, in Southeast Asia especially, selling your children for marriage or into a brothel to go get the money that you need. Because we've shifted over the last several thousand years into a monetary economy so that even if a person has all the things they need off of their land, they can grow their own food and they can do their own thing, they might need a medication and need cash for that. Or they might have to get a loan for something and then need cash to pay that back or whatever it is. So a lot of people that might not be very good at making money, even though they're good at surviving, deal with a lot of these issues. And even more so when I'm talking about money challenges, I'm talking about people that might not have all the skill sets available to use that money appropriately, right? So things like business training, business education, family savings plans, ways in which they can be able to utilize money better, which can lead toward their prosperity. Again, recognizing the fact that poverty is not synonymous with not having enough money. But not having enough money is a very significant part of poverty. Okay, we have the health challenges, and this is referring to people that have health issues, they just don't know what they are or what to do about them. I mean, if you have any health challenges, there's a good chance you can go to the doctor and figure out what that is. Imagine if you had some pain or some discomfort or something was changing in your body and you didn't have any clue what it was or what to do about it, right? Or something was happening even worse, probably for a mother, to see your child with something that's wrong and they're getting sicker every day and you just don't know what it is or what to do about it, right? And not having access to the information or maybe some of the services or the resources that can be used to improve health. And then the last one we'll conclude with is environmental degradation, right? Environmental conditions that once were able to support human activity, now becoming decimated. And I'm not blaming this entirely on our own consumerism and a lot of the corporate environmental destruction that happens in the world, although that is prevalent. You know, I've been to areas of the Niger Delta in Nigeria and seen areas decimated due to irresponsible oil extraction that resulted in acidifying rivers, acidifying soils, these big oil flares that happen in the production process that acidified the air, resulted in acid rain, and decimate the farmlands. And so you have people that for millennia lived relatively opulently off of the land. And now 40 years later, it's one of the areas of worst poverty in the entire world, while it's one of the areas of greatest cash flow in the entire world as well. And so we see that yes, corporate environmental destruction has had a huge impact, but that's not it, because as our population is increasing, then people are actually starting to destroy their own environments at increasing rates just due to their own poverty, right? You have more people, so you have more cattle, they're eating more grass. The eating more grass is resulting in actually desertification, where entire landscapes transform from a grassy area to a desert. You have areas where farmers that because they don't understand the best practices of soil fertility and organic soil management, after growing corn in one place for a couple years, it doesn't grow corn anymore. They've depleted the nutrients that are needed to grow corn. So what do? They cut down more forest to grow corn in new areas of soil. And so people that are striving to survive themselves are major contributors to the environmental destruction. And in the contribution of that environmental destruction, that's a negative self-perpetuating cycle that is exacerbating the conditions that people are living in, resulting in worse conditions of poverty. Okay, so what we just did in the last 15 minutes or so was just go through the poverty cycle to be able to deepen our understanding just a little bit, not only what the root issues of extreme poverty are, but also how they're interconnected, so that we can feel for a moment how silly it would be to be able to identify just one of those things and think that we can interact with that thing as though it exists all by itself. But as we look a little bit deeper, we recognize that all of these roots are entangled and they're interconnected and they're all touching each other. Okay? So again, just reinforcing the need for a holistic perspective in poverty alleviation work.